It's Sunshine Week and a good time to remember the importance of government transparency in our democracy. Nationally, the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, is a tool for shining a light on what government officials are doing. And here in New Mexico, we have the Inspection of Public Records Act, or IPRA. Our New Mexico in Focus team has closely followed legislation on government accountability and transparency in recent years. Producer Sarah Gustavus sat down this week with the executive director of the New Mexico Press Association to talk about the importance of these issues for journalists and everyday New Mexicans.
Rory McClanahan, Executive Director of the New Mexico Press Association and a board member for the Foundation for Open Government. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You're a former newspaper reporter and editor. How important were public records in your work?
Public records are probably the most important thing that a reporter has to deal with on a daily basis. When you think of all the things that we cover as a reporter, local government, school districts, police records, sheriff's records, state legislature. Those are where the basic information of what our government is doing is located. It's always easy to interview somebody, but if it's on paper, that's usually what they're up to. So
I think a lot of folks think that it's your job as a reporter to go interview people and to ask them, and that's where the reporting is. Why is it in the records sometimes?
Well, it's important. Obviously, yes, you do talk to people, you find out, but generally what it comes down to is that when you have a document that says, well, let's think about local government. They're going to spend some money on a local project for tearing up a street. So you'll have that document that says, yes, we're going to spend this much money, but you also want to talk to the people behind it, the officials, saying, what will this do for the people? Why are you doing this? So a document will tell you what's going on, but it doesn't necessarily tell you why it's going on.
You need both.
Yeah.
How do you see reporters using public records today in New Mexico?
Public records, I mean, they've changed a lot since I first started. I started in 1996. So records really weren't online then. Now they're more and more prevalent online. And it makes it easier not only for reporters, but for the public to see what their government is after and what the government is doing. So you can see contracts, you can see requests for proposals, you can do all of that from your desktop. So it makes a reporter's job a little bit easier. So that's why it's important that these documents and these records remain open.
Also salaries of state employees?
Salaries of state employees, yes. You certainly can get in there and do it, and you can even look up their tax records, which actually has been one of the things that reporters have been doing a lot lately. I'm trying to think who it was, but they got busted the other day because they had $182,000 in back taxes that they had to pay. So that always comes up during election time. Who's running for election and finding out, are they paying their tax bills and how are they doing business? Because it's very important to know that the people who have the public's trust, are elected to do these things, are doing what they're supposed to, that they're above board in their interactions.
Now, some of this, when we talk about government transparency, this is part of what we're talking about, but the Inspection of Public Records Act, or IPRA, isn't just for reporters, it's also for the people. Anyone can utilize this law. How do they do that?
Absolutely. Excuse me. Probably the first step, and it's not only IPRA too, the Inspection of Public Records Act, but there's also the Open Meetings Act too, which are the two prongs of transparency in government. But they aren't there for just reporters. And as a matter of fact, it's probably more important that people can access these things. The Attorney General's office on their website, they certainly have they have links on how to access IPRA, how to get in touch with these records, how to file requests for these records, how to file a complaint if you don't get these records. Then you also have the Foundation for Open Government, which anybody can contact, and we will help with that process. It's like if you don't know how to weave your way through it, we can help do that. But the first step is usually with the city clerk's office, and you can ask them for a record. If they say, no, I need an IPRA request, many of them will hand you a piece of paper that says, here's an IPRA request, fill it out. Some will not, though. But that's where places like FOG step up. And even sometimes your local newspaper or local reporters will help out as well if you have a suspicion about something.
Yeah, the implementation can vary in different communities. These records laws, lawmakers come in and they want to make changes here and there or different interpretations of it. In this year's 30-day legislative session, what transparency bills were you watching?
The biggest one was probably in relation to the Spaceport Authority. The private entity that runs the Spaceport Authority wanted to close off all records in that. And, that's certainly a concern and should be a concern for anybody as far as transparency issues go and actually just good government issues. It was something that we struggled with and we fought to have killed, or at least a compromise on this. I mean, you can ask most reporters, and they don't. The argument from the Spaceport Authority was, if we don't have these protections from opening our books, we aren't going to get the business that we need to make this successful. Well, it's like, most reporters, most publishers, newspapers, television stations, they don't want to jeopardize economic development in New Mexico. We know what kind of state that we have, but there has to be some sort of compromise as far as what is open. I mean, this is a huge amount of tax money that went into the construction and maintenance of this spaceport, the runways and everything like that. So there's a certain amount of accountability that has to be there to understand that. So the bill that passed, it was a compromise bill. We didn't get everything that we felt that we needed in that, but I believe the feeling is the language is vague enough that it may come to a court case eventually, depending on how much they're going to give to us and how much they're not. And really what it comes down to is the tenant information, what companies are doing business there and what they're doing there and how are government funds spent to do that.
These records things do end up in court sometimes. Just because these laws exist doesn't mean it's easy to always get the records. What challenges are you hearing about everyday New Mexicans or reporters in trying to access information through the Open Meetings Act or through IPRA?
Probably the largest one in the case going on right now is in Rio Rancho. The cost that municipalities and some government entities are putting on trying to get these records to requesters. In Rio Rancho, I believe it was $30 a page or something of that nature. And if you're doing a request that has thousands of pages, that's thousands of dollars that you have to do that. And sometimes, generally, what it only comes down to is somebody goes to a computer, puts it on a disk, and hands it to somebody. So the state law says that it doesn't set an amount, but it has to be fair and equitable for the amount that it costs that the government to put that together for someone. But there's also and that's if you request a document, if you want a copy of it. But what if you just want to go in and say, I want to look at these? I don't want to copy them, I just want to look at them. Well, what kind of cost is associated with that? Do you have to have somebody standing over you the whole time? And how can you put a $30 a page cost on something like that? So that's sort of the major thing that that not only reporters, but just the public has to deal with on a day-to-day basis when making these requests. The issue that we've been hearing a lot is that because things are online, because it's more electronic, because the citizens are more aware of what their government are doing, there's a lot of phishing expeditions going on where somebody will say, I want to see every email from the mayor from 2009 to 2017. Well, that does take a lot of time and effort to get through, but those emails should still be available. Governments should be looking at ways to make sure that those emails are saved and in an archive where they're easily accessible. So they're, from the government's standpoint, they're looking at it, well, we have to dig these out and find them, whether they exist or not. But the largest issue is just trying to get government to respond to those things in an electronic age.
That is still an issue. Do you think in general that IPRA is working as it should?
In general, yes, absolutely. Could it be strengthened? Yes, absolutely. There are many issues within IPRA that have come up in recent years, such as police body cams. At what point does a police body cam become public record? At what point does a 911 call into a dispatch center, at what point is that a public record? These are things that cases have been filed in court over. Complaints with the Attorney General's office have been filed on these things, but it hasn't got to a point where it's definite, where it's like this is at the point where 911 is a problem. And one of the things that I'm hearing from a lot of our member newspapers too is that a lot of police departments, because of the terrorist threat, are scrambling their police dispatch signals. So in the old days, you would walk into a newsroom and you could hear the police scanner going, and there's somebody being shot or robbed or whatever. But now those scanners are silent because everything's coded and nobody's finding out what the police are doing. So the largest concern is is that a public record? Is a dispatch log a public record as far as what's going on? What are the police up to? So that's one of the major issues that we're having in a lot of newspapers throughout the state as there's police departments change their policies on these things, and it's gonna take somebody to challenge that in court to find out just exactly what happens, or if we can find a friendly legislator, lawmaker to carry a bill for us to solidify these things. But legislators and people in power and government, they're very notorious for not wanting to be as open as they claim to be all the time. So it's always a constant struggle to make sure that government records stay open and transparent.
Roy, we're going to keep our eye on this one here at New Mexico in Focus. We really appreciate you stopping by this week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.